In the news this week, roadmap to normal, the plan to get Western Australia out of lockdown.
Coronavirus curse. WA's top doctor warns young people about the long-term impacts of a COVID-19 infection.
Behind the scenes with farmers, the new initiative pulling back the curtains on where our food really comes from.
And on Western Perspective, a new beginning for a Perth DJ as COVID-19's job devastation creates a new career.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Leung and Sarah Smith.
Good evening. After implementing almost 7 weeks of social restrictions to contain the coronavirus, the WA government has officially released a policy roadmap detailing further moves to ease restrictions. The decisions were made following a National Cabinet meeting earlier this week, where the federal government announced a 3-steps plan to restart normal life in Australia.
Premier Mark McGowan announced the relaxation of a number of restrictions in WA, which will come into effect from next Monday, the 18th of May.
As I've said virtually every day since the commencement of the pandemic, Western Australians have done an incredible job in stopping the spread of the virus. Western Australia's performance has led the nation.
In essence, the headcount limit for non-work and non-essential gatherings will be lifted from 10 to 20, and people are encouraged to return to work, unless unwell or vulnerable. Cafes and restaurants will be able to reopen for dine-in service with maximum 20 patrons while adhering to the 4 square metre rule. The 20 people limit also applies for non-contact sports, fitness classes, libraries, swimming pools and places of worship. For outdoor weddings and funerals though, up to 30 people are allowed. Some regional travel restrictions will also be lifted from next Monday, with several regions merging into bigger zones.
We can be more economically progressive and more advanced than the other states. As it stands right now, we are the first state to move to a 20-person gathering limit weeks before the other states.
Political analyst Dr. Ian Cook says that while the financial impact of COVID-19 will be felt for some time, there will also be long-term impacts on the way the parties run the federal government. Meanwhile, WA's top doctor agreed with the state government's announcement.
Well, all I can say is that this Liberal government has done some very not Liberal things lately. And, we're going to have a conversation about what the hell liberalism means in Australia these days.
Things the Premier talked about, the hard border, the regional restrictions and the way we've dealt with cruise ships are things that the government should rightly be proud of the way they've managed it.
If it all goes well, we can look forward to the next phase 4 weeks after that, which could mean permission for even larger social gatherings, less or no regional travel restrictions, and the reopening of gyms, public playgrounds and cinemas. Helene Fung, WAMN News.
Lung damage, kidney damage, heart damage and PTSD. These are some of the potential long-term side effects of COVID-19. And WA's top doctor says young people are not immune. In an exclusive interview, the Australian Medical Association WA's president, Dr. Andrew Miller, answered questions on why young Western Australians must be careful despite social restrictions winding down.
If you look at the entire situation, there are fears saying, okay, what are the potential impacts of the disease? Is there any hidden things that people should know about?
Well, what we focus on initially is if people get severely unwell with this disease, and most people don't, but 10% of people can end up in hospital and half of them can end up in ICU. Of the people who go to ICU, a lot of them don't survive. Around half don't survive. The ones who do, either ICU or a hospital trip, can end up with long-term complications from this disease is what we're learning.
What are the long-term complications you're talking about?
The kind of things that we're seeing, particularly in the people who were treated in Wuhan and survived, is kidney damage, lung damage, heart damage. So these can be real issues for people over the coming years that they may have to live with disability despite having survived the disease.
What do you have to say to young people who think they're bulletproof?
Well, I thought I was bulletproof when I was young as well. It's quite understandable, and I guess most of the time young people don't get particularly sick with this illness, but some have gotten very sick and some have died as a result of it, unfortunately. So what I would say is you need to avoid catching this disease at the moment, because it would be really annoying to get sick, get a disability from it, before we get a vaccine and a treatment.
So what are the more significant after effects that are being forgotten?
Well, I think that there will be mental health trauma to a lot of people who go through ICU. They can get a post-traumatic stress disorder, even as having survived the disease. Everyone's saying to them, oh, well, congratulations, everything's fine. But in fact, they can feel terrible for quite a significant period of time. People can end up quite depressed and traumatised by going through any illness like this. Also, the ability to affect your lungs so that you can't exercise and so that you're short of breath, and kidney damage, which may end up for some people in needing to have kidney transplant down the track. These are the sort of things that can complicate someone's recovery.
WA's farmers are opening up to the public like never before to give an inside view of what working the land is really like. The Food You Can Trust website tackling the city-country divide with articles and activities for everyone from adults interested in the business and technology of farming to kids who want to know about where their lunch came from. It also provides insights on how farming works in WA and where and why people farm in the state.
People will really get a sense of what it takes to farm in Western Australia and the various obstacles and challenges that you face in terms of providing food, which the WA farmers do an outstanding job.
The state opposition has slammed the McGowan government for a lack of action over water sewerage charges for businesses affected by COVID-19. The opposition's water spokesperson, David Honey, criticised Water Minister Dave Kelly for not cutting the charges, claiming it's unfair and would impact businesses trying to restart after coronavirus. Mr Kelly says he's still looking at the issue, but Mr Honey says the charges are contributing funds for the next election.
They're being forced to pay these charges and they're not getting any service. They're not taking any water in, they're not producing any sewerage. We just think that's unfair. The state government should be helping small business and it shouldn't be charging these charges, and it can afford not to.
Western Australians are being encouraged to get active to improve mental health, with a challenge to reach 3,046 push-ups in 21 days. From Monday, the push-up challenge is bringing 80,000 participants together for the 4th May in a row, raising awareness of mental health issues while promoting movements and fitness. It aims to promote good mental health, especially during COVID-19, and raise funds for Headspace and the National Youth Mental Health Foundation.
Mental health is very important at the moment, and we think there's a lot of value in the push-up challenge supporting people's mental health. Not only do people get fit through the event, through doing a lot of push-ups, but they also learn about mental health along the way.
Unemployment in the United States has exceeded 3.2 million people this week, as US President Donald Trump is aiming to reopen the economy step by step. Although assistance claims are in decline, the figures are the worst since the Great Depression and the global financial crisis. So far, the virus has killed more than 73,000 people in the country, with more than 1.2 million cases reported just this week. Meanwhile, lockdown restrictions are also gradually lifting in France. However, parts of Paris will remain shut as the French government takes a cautious approach to reopening the country. While parks and secondary schools will remain closed, extraordinary measures, including an employer permission requirement for workers wanting to take peak-hour public transport, will remain. But more than 1 million children will return to school next week in the country.
And with the weather cooling off in WA substantially following this week's thunderstorm, here's Jessica Lingard from the Bureau of Meteorology WA with next week's weather forecast.
So looking at the forecast for next week, we've got some beautiful temperatures for the start of the week, around the low to mid-20s, and then heating up as we head towards Wednesday. Wednesday could be beautiful, around the mid to high 20s there. And then for the end of the week, we're looking at some rain starting to come by on Thursday and Friday, a couple of showers around, as it looks like another cold front's heading our way. The cold front that came through last week was one of the storms that we describe as a once or twice a year event. So hopefully not another one of those, but at this stage a little too early to say, and we'll obviously be keeping a close eye on it.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website and social media pages.
Until 5:30 next Sunday, look after yourself, stay at home and have a pleasant evening.
Take care.